President Trump is set to leave for North Dakota. It will be his second pitch to make the case for tax cuts in as many weeks. This time, a state in which he won big, got 63% of the vote in North Dakota. He is taking with him the Democratic senator from that state, Heidi Heitkamp, who will be traveling with him and has also indicated being open to some of the ideas the president is crafting here. Remember, she was among those 3 prominent Democratic senators who did not sign on to that letter signed by 45 Democratic senators protesting tax cuts that would be make the deficit worse or benefit the rich. To former Bush 43 Deputy Chief of Staff Karl Rove on what he makes of all these cross currents. What do you think?
Well, it's smart for the president to keep punching away at the same issue. Went to Missouri and talked about tax reform, home state of another vulnerable Democrat up next year, Claire McCaskill. Now he's going to North Dakota. You got to be careful about this. We did this in 2005 on Social Security reform. We actually went to North Dakota because Kent Conrad, a member of the Senate Finance Committee, was in the state that went heavily for Bush in 2004. I remember flying out with him to North Dakota. He actually had a spreadsheet showing the looming problems with Social Security, how it was going to go belly up. But that didn't cause him, after we made the speech, after the president made the speech, to come aboard the cause of Social Security reform. So you got to lower your expectations, but this is necessary and good. I hope the president keeps it up. I hope he puts the emphasis less on the states where he goes and more on the backdrops that can help dramatize how tax reform will help create jobs and strengthen the economy and broaden prosperity. The backdrop is almost as important, or in some instances more important, than what state you're in.
I'm also wondering about the news backdrop to all of this. Harvey last week and now Irma this week. Florida Governor Rick Scott is addressing reporters right now. He already is recommending an evacuation for those in Miami-Dade County. Others could follow. The president is generally getting high marks for how he's handled this in coordination with state and local officials. Does this provide support to him as well when he makes a pitch for tax relief and uses it to say everyone needs an economic pickup from this?
Well, a little bit more difficult to make the connection with the victims of a storm. But if the point is, does he need to keep at this even when the backdrop is trying to draw another topic onto the public imagination? Yeah, he should, because you can't control the agenda. Events intrude. Irma is going to be a big story increasingly during the balance of the week. So it's good he's going to be out there on Wednesday, because by Friday or Saturday we're going to be all Irma all the time. But that's what a president has to deal with each and every day. If he wants to drive his message through, he needs to stay at it consistently and find new and different ways to help drive home that message, particularly from a substantive perspective. The backdrop, as I said earlier, matters a lot. Does it help people understand why this is important to them and their family and their community and the prosperity of their neighborhood? What
do you think, Karl, of the fact that he could engender some Democratic support precisely because it might not be the sweeping tax reform some thought it would be? We don't know the details yet, but the fact that the rich might not get as much as was earlier envisioned. In fact, they could end up paying more if a lot of their deductions and allowances are taken away, that might improve the chances of passage from some key Democrats, maybe the North Dakota senator included, and that maybe that's kind of his bargaining chip.
Yeah, I think that's one argument. I think there's a companion argument, which is, my sense is more of this measure is aimed at reducing corporate tax rates and ending the double taxation of American profits from abroad, making us a territorial tax system like all our major international competitors. So I think this gets him a chance to get some pro-business Democrats, because, as you say, it's more about, how do we affect the competitiveness of America's commerce, and not just how do we lower tax rates, particularly since, look, we have a system in which, let's be honest, 50% of the taxpayers, 50% of the people who file pay 1% of the tax. 50% of the tax burden is paid, 99% of the tax burden is paid by the other half, most of it by the top 1%, 10%, 15%, 25%. So if you're going to engage in lowering tax rates and actually giving people a personal tax cut, half the people who file an income tax return pay no income tax. So you're going to be affecting the top half of American wage earners, and that's increasingly difficult for for politicians in Washington to do, particularly when we're in as polarized an environment as we are. But that's where you would get economic growth on that side. If you wanted to encourage economic growth by reforming the personal taxes, you would cut the top tax rates. But if you can't do that, then by God, you better do a great job of getting things done with the corporate tax rate.
Yeah, and that seems to be what they're betting their hopes on. You know, just as you and I were finishing speaking, Karl, the House went ahead and approved that Harvey aid. It now goes to the Senate, where they might attach this and likely will to an increase in the debt ceiling. What do you think of that? I guess it removes the possibility of a potential government shutdown, and there are a number of conservatives screaming about that. But where do you see this going?
Well, look, it doesn't stop a government shutdown. That'll be the funding bill. But what it does do is it stops us from being in a place where we're playing games with the credit of good faith and credit of the United States government. I frankly, I don't understand why we even have a debt ceiling increase. We increase our debt of the United States when we pass an appropriation bill.
Right.
That was done months and months and months ago. And we have a needless political fight. If there's a Republican president, then Democrats will vote against raising the debt ceiling. If we have a Democratic president, then Republicans will vote against it.
So they avoid a fight on increasing the debt ceiling. I mean, they separately have to come up with a budget. I mean, do you think they could get all of this done to clear the way for getting these tax cuts passed this year?
Well, I've actually written my Wall Street Journal column about this for tomorrow, because I do think the Republicans have to deliver on the tax cuts. But you take a look. Your reporter earlier talked about it. Think about it. This month, before the end of this month, we've got to reauthorize flood insurance, the Children's Health Insurance Program, and the FAA. We have to increase the debt ceiling not by September 29th. That's when the Treasury Secretary wants to do it. But we got to get it done by mid-October. We have to fund the government by the end of the month, because we have yet to pass a budget for next year. We don't have a budget resolution, and we need to have a budget resolution if it passed by the House and Senate. No Democrat will vote for it, but that's the only way that we're going to be able to get tax cuts by 51 votes in the Senate, is if it's done under reconciliation that's provided by having a budget resolution in place. And then we have to fund Harvey. Harvey disaster relief, because the FEMA is running out of money tomorrow. So that's a lot to get done in a very short period of time, plus DACA, plus tax reform, plus health care reform, all of which I think is going to take October, November, December to get done.
Yeah, 11 days with the House and Senate this month will be together. So time's a waste in just this month. Karl Rove, thank you very, very much.